I've been selling my soul, working all day, overtime hours for bullshit pay.
First person shooter mode, we turning your son to a funeral. To them niggas that say they don't office, you better be talking about working in cubicles. Yeah.
Hello, and welcome to the final episode of A Musical Deep Dive, the show where I take you back in time to a specific year in music history, and we just talk about what exactly made that year so special for everybody who listens to music. I am your master of ceremonies, Jake Williams, ready to do this thing one last time. But today, we're not actually going back to a year that's super far into the past, because we're only going back to a year that just recently happened. This was a year full of young adult angst, colorful tunes, and a colorful soundtrack, the continuation of one of the most memorable feuds in music history, and the rise of a genre that not many people admit that they are a fan of, country music. But of course, during this year, one of the most memorable during this year, one of the most successful musicians of all time peaked with a plethora of events, some good, some bad, happening this particular year. So hold on tight as we take you back to 2023. Let's start this discussion off with one of my favorite albums to come out of this year, and it was also one of the most successful, garnering Olivia Rodrigo her second of 2 Album of the Year nominations. Guts by Olivia Rodrigo. Olivia Rodrigo officially got her start in 2016 when she was playing Paige on the Disney Channel series Bizaardvark. And then in 2019 she began playing Nene on High School Musical, the musical The Series. She was already a well-established person in the world of children's television, but she wanted to become an even bigger name by making her own music outside of the Disney label. Thus, in 2021, she delivered her debut single, Driver's License, off of her very successful debut album, Sour. She released her sophomore album, Guts, in 2023, which continues a lot of the themes that were represented in Sour, including young adult angst and wanting to grow up and be an independent person. Those themes become very relevant in tracks such as Vampire and Get Him Back. Rodrigo specifically said that in the time between releasing Sour and Guts, she felt that she aged about 10 years, even though it's only been 2 years. She describes the album as a journal about the time that she has had growing up between the 2 albums, and she was able to incorporate a lot of different genres, such as alternative rock, punk, indie pop, and even new wave. The album was a massive success, with all 12 songs from the album debuting on the top 40 of the Billboard Hot 100 in September of 2023. And as mentioned before, this garnered Rodrigo her second Album of the Year nomination at the Grammys, but she unfortunately lost to Midnights by Taylor Swift. More on her in just a little bit. Needless to say, Guts is one of my favorite albums from this year. It's very colorful and upbeat, and it just makes you want to dance. Just like the songs from the soundtrack of one of the most iconic and memorable movies of this year, Barbie. Barbie released on July 21st, 2023, and quickly became the most profitable movie of that same year, right behind the Super Mario Bros. Movie. The film, funnily enough, discusses some of the same themes that were expressed in Rodrigo's album Guts, such as independence, growing up to be your own unique person, and just having a good time overall. And to absolutely no one's surprise, many of the songs from this soundtrack also deal with those same themes. The most iconic songs from the soundtrack include Dance the Night by Dua Lipa, What Was I Made For by Billie Eilish, and Barbie World by Ice Spice featuring Nicki Minaj.
'Cause every romance shakes and it bends, don't give a damn. When the night's here, I don't do tears, baby, no chance. I could dance, I could dance, I could dance. Watch me dance, dance the night away. I used to float, now I just fall down. I used to know, but I'm not sure now what I was made for. And I'm bad like the Barbie. I'm a doll, but I still wanna party. Pink felt like I'm ready to bend. I'm a 10, so I pull in a Ken. Like Jazzy, Stacy, Nikki. All of the Barbies is pretty. All of the Barbies is bad. It girls, and we ain't playing tag.
The album, although faring about average with critics, was still very successful, peaking at number 2 on the Billboard 200. It also produced 3 singles that peaked in the top 10 positions on the Billboard Hot 100. The album features many popular artists that were very successful in the 2020s, including Charli XCX, The Kid Laroi, Tame Impala, and Ava Max. But somebody who wasn't on that soundtrack but still had a very successful album, whether you like to admit it or not, was Drake, who this year released his album, For All the Dogs. Released in October of 2023, this was the 4th album that Drake had released in the 2020s decade, behind Certified Lover Boy, released in 2021, and Her Loss and honestly Nevermind, both released in 2022. The album, to no one's surprise, ended up being a very big hit, earning approximately 514 million streams within the first week of its release. However, it is also seen as a very controversial album. One reason that this is seen as a controversial album is because of the lead single, Slime You Out. In September, Drake and SZA both promoted the song on Instagram in a post that featured Halle Berry being slimed at the Kids' Choice Awards. That seems like a fine way to promote the song, especially given that it's called Slime You Out. The only issue is that Halle Berry never consented to that photo being used of her, and so she ended up filing a lawsuit against Drake. On September 15th, that single was released without that controversial image as its cover art. The other reason that many people see this album as controversial is because of the most popular single to come from it, First Person Shooter featuring J. Cole.
Big as the Super Bowl, but the difference is it's just 2 guys playing shit that they did in the studio. Niggas usually send they verses back to me and they be terrible, just like a 2-year-old. I love a dinner with some fine women. When they start debating about who the GOAT, I'm like, go ahead, say it then, who the GOAT?
On the surface, this might seem like a normal song from a typical rap album, but it was responsible for reigniting one of the most popular feuds in rap music history. The feud between Drake and Kendrick Lamar. In the song, J. Cole raps about him, Drake, and Kendrick being part of the quote-unquote big 3 of rap music. In response, in March 2024, Kendrick featured on the song Like That by Future and Metro Boomin, in which he negates the statement that he is part of the quote-unquote big 3. In the next few months, this feud would continue to go on even further, with both artists releasing songs seemingly within hours of each other. The final song of this timeline was released on May 5th, 2024 by Drake, titled The Heart Part 6. Now, although he was the last person to release a song in this feud, it is widely interpreted that Kendrick won this feud overall, especially with the song that he released the day prior, Not Like Us. So 2023 was a massive year for Drake, Olivia Rodrigo, Dua Lipa, Billie Eilish, and a whole bunch of other artists. But there was one artist who came on top with both the #1 song and the #1 album of 2023. Morgan Wallen, who released One Thing at a Time, featuring the song Last Night.
Last night we let the liquor talk. I can't remember everything everything we said, but we said it all. You told me that you wish I was somebody you never met. But baby, something's telling me this ain't over yet.
The album was a massive financial success, and although it didn't win any major awards, 8 out of the 36 songs from this album had a spot on the year-end Billboard Hot 100 chart at the end of 2023. Ever since the album released on March 3rd of this year, there has been an influx of country music peaking on the charts. In fact, of the 19 songs that peaked at number 1 in 2023, 4 of them, including Last Night, were country songs. And funnily enough, 2 of these songs especially are seen as very controversial. These songs include Try That in a Small Town by Jason Aldean.
We'll try that in a small town. See how far you make it down the road.
Rich Men North of Richmond by Oliver Anthony.
It's a damn shame what the world's gotten to for people like me, people like you.
And I Remember Everything by Zach Bryan and Casey Musgraves.
Rod girl and whiskey's gonna ease my mind. Beach towel dress on the drying line.
Aside from 4 country songs peaking at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, there were a total of 29 country songs that had a spot on the year-end Billboard Hot 100 charts, which was the most out of any recent years. Aside from Morgan Wallen, artists that took up these spots include Luke Combs, Bailey Zimmerman, and Jordan Davis. Some might argue that this was arguably the year that Morgan Wallen reigned supreme, but others would argue otherwise because it becomes very evident that somebody else had an even more successful year than any of these artists that we've talked about. Of course, I am talking about Taylor Swift. To give you a brief timeline of everything that happened to Taylor Swift this year, on February 5th, she took home yet another Grammy Award, this one being for her short film, All Too Well. On March 17th, she embarks on her record-breaking Eras Tour. This tour was seen as an overall celebration of her first 10 studio albums, Taylor Swift, Fearless, Speak Now, Red, 1989, Reputation, Lover, Folklore, Evermore, and Midnight, with each album representing one of her eras. Taylor Swift always had a designated set list for all of the songs that she would perform for each era. Most of the time, these songs would remain very similar from show to show. However, she would always include 2 surprise songs, one on guitar and one on piano. This led a lot of Swifties online and in person to guess what her surprise songs would be for each particular show. On April 8th, Taylor cuts ties with Joe Alwyn, a British actor who she has been in a relationship with since 2016. On May 11th, talks had started that Taylor Swift was in a relationship with Maddie Healy, the lead vocalist of the 1975. The 2 would officially cut ties on June the 5th. On July 7th, Taylor released Speak Now, Taylor's Version, a re-recording of her 3rd studio album, originally released in 2010. It became her 12th album to top the Billboard 200 charts, making her the artist with the most #1 albums. This re-recording also features a plethora of new collaborations with artists such as Fall Out Boy and Hayley Williams. On September 24th, rumors began that Taylor was dating Kansas City Chiefs tight end Travis Kelce. These rumors started after Taylor was seen attending a Chiefs game, and the 2 have had a number of public appearances together. These rumors would officially be confirmed on October 14th when the 2 were seen leaving a Saturday Night Live after-party. On October 13th, Taylor released Taylor Swift The Eras Tour, a concert documentary film about, you guessed it, the Eras Tour. The film ended up making $92 million in its opening weekend and $249 million in total, making it the highest grossing concert film of all time. On October 27th, exactly 9 years after she released her fifth studio album, 1989, she releases 1989 Taylor's Version. This was her fourth re-recorded album and her sixth release to sell more than 1 million copies within its first week. This re-recording would also include 5 brand new singles, including the #1 chart topper, Is It Over Now? That same day, Forbes estimated that her net worth was $1.1 billion, making her the first person to achieve billionaire status solely based on music sales. On November 28th, Taylor was named the most streamed artist of 2023 by both Spotify and Apple Music. She would officially dethrone Bad Bunny, who held the title on both platforms the previous year. And on December 6th, Taylor would officially be named Time Magazine's Person of the Year, citing her billionaire status and her pop culture dominance. Well guys, that is gonna do it. I hope you guys have enjoyed this entire series. Thank you so much for coming along with me on this whirlwind of a journey. If you want to see more content of mine, head on over to my TikTok page titled A Musical Deep Dive, where you can see more content just like this. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope to talk to you guys soon.